Hello everyone, I'm Stav Cohen. Today is January 12th, 2025. It is now 464 days that 98 people, including 2 young children, women and elderly, are still in Hamas's brutal captivity. Tell Hamas and their bakers, let them go now. This is the live daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokespersons office. Start sending your questions in the chat. I'll answer what I can at the end. There is an interesting news from the Palestinian Fatah party. Fatah is blaming Hamas for the suffering of the people of Gaza. The Fatah party runs the Palestinian government. Fatah said that Hamas is an Iranian proxy stealing humanitarian aid, responsible for the destruction in Gaza, hiding behind Gazans, and much, much more. Fatah never condemned October 7th massacre. Some officials in Fatah even praised the October 7th massacre. The Palestinian government in Ramallah, led by Fatah, pays terrorists who murder Israelis. But Gazans and those who living under Fatah Palestinians government in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, they know that Hamas is the reason they suffer. Hamas is trying to copy the Gazans' disaster to other areas. Israel wants to stop Hamas. The Palestinian government in the West Bank also wants to stop Hamas. Anyone who claims to care about Gazans should stop bashing Israel and instead focusing on Hamas. Hamas is a threat to everyone, Israelis and Palestinians alike. Hamas cannot be Israel's neighbor or Gazan's government. This war will only end after Hamas ends. Lebanon's army isn't stopping Hezbollah. That's why Israel's troops haven't completely left southern Lebanon. Yesterday, Israel struck three Hezbollah terrorists on the Israel-Lebanon border. A few days before, Israel struck weapons being loaded onto a Hezbollah vehicle in southern Lebanon. Israel's troops found a multi-barrel rockets launcher, hundreds of mortar shells, and anti-tank rockets in a southern Lebanon village. This has been ongoing for weeks. Israel troops have left parts of southern Lebanon. Lebanon's army have taken some positions in southern Lebanon. And outgoing US President Biden, Lebanon envoy, is promising Israel will leave by January 27. But Israel said they would leave southern Lebanon only if Lebanon's army stopped Hezbollah from coming back. So far, that hasn't happened. That's why Israel's commanders keep saying they cannot leave Lebanon just yet. As long as Lebanon's army doesn't take Israel's place, Israel will not leave. Israel cannot return to October 8, 2023, when Hezbollah joined Hamas's war. Israel needs peace, not a piece of paper. Hamas claims they don't know where the most hostages in northern Gaza are. Hamas is saying that the hostages are missing. Hamas lost the hostages. Can you believe it? That's what Hamas told their PR at Qatar's Al Jazeera. Hamas also said they wouldn't reveal who was alive up until after Israel's soldier withdraw from Gaza. Hamas also leaked an alleged list of hostages to be freed, right before Israel found the remains of some who were not alive for some time. Meanwhile, Israel sent a high-level delegation to Hamas's base in Qatar to free the hostages. Outgoing and incoming US President Biden and Trump both sent representatives too. But President Biden's White House warned, "We have made some progress, but Hamas continues to create obstacles at the negotiation table." Hamas is playing games with the hostages' lives. Hamas is torturing the hostages' families. Hamas has rejected every hostage deal. Hamas wants Israel to capitulate without releasing the hostages so it can hold hostages for insurance while planning more October 7th. Let's take some questions for the audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Stav. Our first question comes from Mia on Instagram. How will the election of Lebanon's new president, Joseph Aoun, affect the war?
Well, basically, Lebanon hasn't been able to agree on a president for more than 2 years, long before Hezbollah's attack on October 8th, right? So if Lebanon is now going to be stronger and stand against Hezbollah and Iranian influences, that will be good. But we shouldn't forget that the President Owen was only elected because he had the support of Hezbollah's members of parliament. So I'd be skeptical about it, I guess. In fact, as long as Hezbollah keeps sitting in Lebanon's parliament and being a part of Lebanon's government, like it is right now, right? I don't think anyone should get too excited about it. The ceasefire says Hezbollah needs to be out of southern Lebanon, disarmed, and more weapons can't come in Lebanon for them. Until this happens, the threat from Hezbollah is still very real.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Romy on Instagram. The IDF just announced that 4 more IDF soldiers were killed in the fighting in northern Gaza. When will it end?
The situation is quite difficult. As a soldier myself, as a reservist myself, I can say that Hamas continues to fight. As long as Hamas continues to fight, somebody is going to have to fight back. Right now, the only group is going to fight back is the Israel Defense Forces. Northern Gaza is very close to Israeli towns like Sderot. Israeli soldiers are fighting to protect their families, our friends, our home. This is a long war. I hope that the war ends with Hamas out of power and the hostages are back home. I'm waiting to see what happens on January 20 when President Trump takes office. He has said that there will be all hell to pay if Hamas doesn't release the hostages.
Our next question comes from Alone on Instagram. Kogat just announced Israel's policy regarding Palestinians in Gaza who want to leave Gaza and receive medical treatment abroad. Can you explain this, please?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, they just published its policy, right? That is the Israeli agency that deals with the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The statement basically says that if any country around the world wants to treat Gazans' patients in their hospitals, then the state of Israel will help to ensure that. Will help to ensure that the patients can safely exit Gaza and pass through Israel. Israel will check to make sure that the medical patients are not terrorists in disguise. Basically, that's it. Keep in mind that there are still around 100 Israeli hostages in Gaza, and none of them have been visited even once by the Red Cross.
Thank you. This is our final question from Daniel on Instagram. What are you hoping to see from President Trump when he takes office in a few days?
Well, the same thing I hoped from the President Biden. Maximum pressure on Hamas and Hamas's bakers, Qatar, Turkey, Iran, you name it, all the proxies of Iran, so Hamas release our hostages. Right now, it seems like Qatar is basically telling Hamas to keep the hostages until Hamas gets a deal that allows Hamas to remain in power in Gaza. That's all we have time for. Thank you for tuning with us. We'll be back on Sunday at 3 p.m. Israel time, 8 a.m. East Coast time. Thank you for watching.